like this. So, in there. And once you get kind of doughy, sort of like a cookie, kind of, you can make like a little ball. Flatten it a little bit, it cooks a little bit better. And then you put it in your boiling pot of water. Oh. And it's boiled bread, basically. When it's done, it's going to look like these right here.
Oh. What's the dark in there, the berries?
Yeah, that's the blueberries.
The blueberry, okay. Oh, she's gonna, there you go. I'd be tempted to do that too.
And what you do is you soak the walnuts for at least 12 hours. I like to do it more. And then you start crushing them up, and you add a little bit of water to it after you empty your soaked walnuts. You get a little water to it. And then, if you don't want it to be all clumpy, you can strain it over something like this.
No, you can go in the oven if you want.
But you can see it takes a long time to make. So I've been working on this all morning, and I only have very little.
Does your little girl like walnut milk?
I'm not sure if she likes walnut milk or not. She hasn't tried it yet. She definitely likes cornbread though.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
Some in a minute, okay.
Uncock your mat. Throw out your pan. Distinguish your mats. And rejoin me over here, gentlemen. You as well, drummer. Any questions from anybody? However, if he fought together in formation with other musketeers, we were in Virginia almost invincible. Other than to the heat, the weather, the mosquitoes, the bad water, and all those other things that they had in Jamestown. Thank you.
Thank you. I was down there already. So.
Black. So, let's say you're working in the forge. You go up to a piece of metal, and so especially if you're working with somebody else, you're gonna touch it. Oh, it's hot, because it can still be black and still be extremely hot. So you always have to go check. Put your hand either tap, tap, hold, see how hot it is, because it can still be scorching hot. It's gonna burn you. Stop working the bellows.
How's work doing that all day?
I'm sorry?
How's work doing that all day?
Yeah. Warm too.
Yeah, this was just a little bit cold outside.
Welcome AC.
Some really hot, harsh, hot. If your chest is full of phlegm, you know, and you're all congested, smoke some of that tobacco, and you'll basically purge the phlegm by coughing. You know, okay, my lungs are no longer full of mucus. Of course, now Mucinex doesn't have side effects like cancer and death and stuff. Chamomile for upset tummies. Yarrow is antibacterial. It stops bleeding, and it is a mild painkiller. So that's basically Bactine for cuts. I've got alum for clotting blood. So if somebody's got a small cut and I just want to stop the bleeding, I can just rub that crystal. It's aluminum sulfate. It's the stuff when you're making pickles. Alum is what makes pickles taste pickly. You know, it gives them that puckery taste, and it coagulates blood. Back when you might be old enough to remember styptic pencils, when safety razors weren't all that safe, they cut the dickens out of you, and you
those
little white thing that burns like crazy, and you put it on your shaving cuts. Yeah, this is a styptic crystal. It's the same stuff. Comfrey comfrey has a chemical in it called allantoin that promotes cell growth. So steeping this in hot water and then wrapping it in a cloth and putting it on an injury will cause the wound to heal faster. Cloves for toothache. A couple of years ago they changed the formula on Ambisol, the toothache remedy. It's now like benzocaine or something like that. It used to be eugeniol, used to be clove oil. And you can still pack powdered ground cloves into a cavity, and it'll relieve the pain somewhat. Of course, that doesn't stop the tooth from continuing to rot. So sooner or later, you got to go back to the surgeon and get the tooth yanked. And of course, if you let it rot too long, you'll grab it with the pliers, it'll shatter, and then you got to dig out the bits where the goat's foot there. Let me tell you, I've gotten more kids to brush their teeth. Yeah, brush your teeth and they don't have to do this. And if you've got intestinal parasites, I've got some tincture of wormwood here. Drink that bottle and you better be within 10 feet of a bathroom. Because it will kill the worms and it will get rid of everything you've eaten in the past couple of weeks. My major focus is going to be on treating wounds. I don't know about germs, but I know that if I paint wood with turpentine, or I put vegetables in vinegar, or I put a batch of mincemeat up in a crock of alcohol, that it gives it a longer shelf life. So if I put those in a cut, it'll stop the cut from rotting. And then honey is good for burns and things. I've got gunshot ointment, and I've got more tobacco that I can use for things like poultices on bee stings. If you got a really bad upset stomach, you can swallow some tobacco juice and then no more upset.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very informative.
So yeah, I can actually, particularly from a physical standpoint, digging bullets out and things like that, I can do a lot for you. Diseases, you're still stuck with kind of medieval medicine, but yes, we have figured out some stuff that does actually work. Microscopes are about 70 years in the future, so I'm not going to know about germs, but I am going to know that I'm going to know if I see stuff working, then I'm going to know it works. Don't know how it works, don't know why it works, I do know that it works.
That's a smart one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And down at historic Jamestown in 1609, John Woodall, the guy who wrote the book that this diagram is, Woodall sent one of his East India Company and Royal Navy surgeons' chests over to Jamestown in 1609, and at historic Jamestown they've actually dug up bits of medical gear that match the diagram in Woodall's book. So like they found a spatula mandani, they found a scalpel. Here's scalpel. I know you're here somewhere, scalpel. Oh, there it is. They found a scalpel. They found a retractor, some other stuff that actually matches Woodall's book. So it's extremely likely that the stuff they dug up actually probably came from that box that Woodall sent over.
Wow.
I was telling them that since I'm a military or a naval or expeditionary surgeon, sometimes I can't send somebody down the street to the apothecary. So before I go on a trip, I'm going to hit up the apothecary myself and buy the medicines that I'm going to need to deal with whatever diseases I'm expecting. I'm going to focus a lot on things like treating injuries, with what we would now call antiseptics, and I in this period would call an astringent.
Are those actual medicines?
Yes.
Dang. So you got them from that long ago?
No, they're fresh.
So you just remade them?
So first I'm going to put it in this, which is going to make that chemical get into the fibers.
So the pot's going to get really hot?
I'm going to get it hot but not boiling. So right now I'm just making sure everything dissolves. The chemical I'm using is called alum. You can actually find it in the grocery store today.
This is a herb garden right here.
How would you get the alum? Would you grow it would it come from a plant?
No, I believe they discovered it because they had alum. and also cream of tartar was another common mordant. But alum, I think the crystals, they discovered it inside wine barrels, in the wine vats. So that's how they found out about that. It's kind of, one of those things like yeast where you just find it, or someone leaves something and it ferments and you go, oh, hey, happy accident. Do you guys have any questions about anything? Yep.
How do the worms make the silk?
It's kind of like a spider makes a web. So the worms spin a cocoon, and that's what the silk is.
Okay.
You want to touch it? You can feel it.
Is it soft?
It's much nicer when it's not wet, but I had to get it wet. And see how fine it is? If you pull it apart, it's like a little spider web.
Try your match. Guard your pan and blow on your match. Open your pan and give fire. Misfires. Uncock your match and dump your load. Open your pan and blow it out. There were about 43 commands for firing this musket. This large musket was the finest weapon on the face of the planet at the time. It was the most modern. It could actually be fired once every 20 seconds or so, which was remarkably fast for the time. And these gentlemen could be trained how to use this musket in a matter of about 10 days, as opposed to 10 years that it would teach a man to shoot a bow. However, the Native Americans were some of the finest warriors on the face of the planet and could fire about 10 times faster and very seldom ever missed anything they aimed at. However, what was good for these musketeers is that as long as they fought in formation, their weapons would shoot further than the Native Americans' arrows. The last time they fired, it was for training. When they were in the field, no one shouted out those commands all the time. No one would have been able to hear them. What they would have said is, make ready. And when you are ready, raise up thy hand. You would have had line upon line of musketeers. One line would be firing now while these men reloaded in 20 seconds or so, and then they would step forward. So there would be a constant rate of fire going on at all times.
Ready?
Set your piece. Open your pan and give fire. Misfires.
3 seconds.
Uncock your match and put it out. Take up your match. Shoulder your musket. Now we're going to fire the cannon, which will be a little bit louder. But first, since these men might be a little rusty, we're going to go through a training with the cannon to make sure we have it down pat. Gentlemen, shoulder your muskets and turn about to by your right hand and march to the rear. And put away your muskets against the wall. Remove your bandoliers. Since we're going to be loading a cannon, these men are all the bandoliers that they have strung around them are these wooden bottles that you hear me talking about. And they each have enough to fire the musket with. The last thing we want to do when we fire the cannon is have those go off as well. So we're going to take off any other powder or anything that could blow up while we are loading the cannon. Used to fire a cannon, there was a ramrod, a scouring stick, a sponge. There was something called a thumb stall, and we'll tell you why when we're doing we're not going to fire the cannon on the first training.
Actually, we have a dump site for that.
Thumb stall's missing.
I'm sorry.
And you will keep your thumb there until the cannon is ready to fire. Search the piece. You search the piece, turning it around at least 2 times. Thank you, sir. Sponge the piece. Just make sure it's light. Listen for a swooshing sound when you pull it out. Advance the charge. Put down your piece. Charge the piece. Ram home the charge.
How loud is the little one?
So loud, honey. Louder than the gun.
Prick the piece.
Okay.
How loud is the little one?
We'll find out here in just a little bit.
You feel it making resistance. Prime the piece.
I'm gonna cover my ears.
Well, you don't have to just
Have a care. Bombardier. Give fire. Boom. Now this time we're going to load the piece. You go light your lint stock. Down.
Okay, don't worry. So we got several minutes to put it in.
Search the piece. Sponge the piece. We're sponging the piece to make sure there's not some coal burning in there that would blow up when we put in the powder. Advance the charge and charge the piece. Lower your mat.
actually going to put in powder.
Ram home the charge gently. Underhanded.
How long is you can open it over.
Prick the piece.
Good. Set it off.
And then you have a big giant spear flying through the building right there.
And a second one with it.
Probably should have some big burns on the hand.
Stand ready. Do not prime the piece. Got it? Prime the piece. Now you might want to hold your ears. I need more powder on it.
No, put your hands like over your ears.
Over your, yeah. I think it.
Have a care. Idea. Give fire. Shazam. Scour the piece and sponge the piece. What about you, Matt? And secure the piece. We like to keep the barrel closed when we're not firing the cannon. Make sure someone doesn't come through and roll a walnut. This happens here before. We couldn't get this cannon to fire, and we just looked at it. Someone came along, rolled a small walnut or something down the barrel. We loaded it and loaded it, and could never make it fire. But finally, we figured out what it was, and it fired good everything. This cannon right here is a Falcon, and it's actually off the
Specialized. So we're doing this here to show you all of the different things that are going on. But really on a tobacco plantation, you're just going to see tobacco.
You want to go in the little house and see?
Those are ones made.
Thank you. You're welcome.
It's clay we dug up right through the woods there. The river's on the other side of that. And so we dig up that clay and sift out the rock, put them in a mold, and sit them out in the sun.